I'm Jill Angelo, and welcome to the Geneve podcast. How do you inspire a whole generation of women who will be going through a life change like menopause? You put yourself out there, you share your story, and you invite other women to join you in your journey. That's exactly what our guest today, Amanda Thebe, has done through her lifelong work as not only a fitness instructor and what some women have coined her the guru or the over 40 guru, which I love personally. When Amanda hit perimenopause, her fine-tuned fitness body and routine had to change. She saw this as an opportunity to share her experience through media, her Instagram account, and most recently, her book, Menopocalypse. There are 38 million women today in the United States of menopausal age. And I'd say that makes Menopocalypse very timely and well worth the read. You'll hear today in my interview with Amanda about her own challenges in menopause and how she's sharing those lessons with women everywhere. Oh, and one final thing, you don't need to be a fitness guru like Amanda to manage your menopause. So let's dive in. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks. You've made me sound fantastic.
Well, hey, the truth comes out. You have an incredible background. Let's start there. Like, you have been a fitness instructor working with women and men for over 20 years. What's that like?
It could have been longer, actually, because I sort of was the fit kid that became the fitness instructor. You know, I was into karate as a kid. I was from the northeast of England, where you needed to get off the streets at night, you know. So my mum put me into karate. I did that for I think 10 or 12 years. I was a Dan grade in karate, and it sort of just set up in me really good habits. And that's what I love. I love behaviors and habits and routines that just come second nature to us, like cleaning our teeth. And so even though I went to work in IT, ultimately I worked for IBM for a lot of time. I sort of qualified to do my personal training in the UK at Loughborough University. It was a different process then. You actually had to do a couple of years diploma to do it. It wasn't just like a weekend. Some of them are like weekend courses now. It's crazy. But then from being about 21, I'm 50 now, so gosh, it's 30 years. I just literally forgot to count 10 of them. And I've always done exercise, fitness, and courses and specialties all along those years. I'm never actually doing it as a job because I was with IBM. But then I flipped over the Atlantic and ended up in Boston, and then ultimately Toronto. And it was when I was in Toronto with two young kids and I was no longer working for IBM, I started focusing full time on my fitness journey. And, you know, I garnered a whole lot of clients that were very similar to me, you know, a mum at the school in her 40s, looking for the best, most efficient way to exercise that made them feel good about themselves, but didn't take up hours of their day, because, you know, it's pretty confusing when you go to start and you don't know what to do. You know, it's overwhelming. And so that was sort of like how I got into fitness for the over 40 crowd, because that was ultimately me. And I just think I just started talking about the realness of being 40. I started talking about, you know, like women's health, why it's important to be strong and build resiliency. And I think that what happened is I came from it from a really real, I don't know, just like a really real point of view. Like, people definitely related to me because I wasn't out there flexing or showing off my ego. I was out there saying, this is what it feels like to be 40 working out. This is what your potential is. These are the hazards that might come along your way. And I just didn't try and oversell anything, which is what I get really frustrated with for anything in our age group, right?
Yeah. You know, I think the notion of being relatable and then trusted is such a big deal, especially amongst women over 40, because we've been there, done that. We've seen a lot, tried a lot, obviously. And one thing about you as well, if you don't, for anyone listening today, if you don't follow Amanda on her Instagram account, oh my gosh, I think you have an incredible sense of humor. And you're so I think your relatability and also your humor, you know when to laugh at the things that just are kind of imperfect about life. Have you always had that kind of sense of humor, or where did you kind of learn to just get so honest and real about, the good and the bad?
Yeah, I think I've always maybe been a little bit cheeky and irreverent. I think that's maybe my upbringing in the northeast of England, because when, your upbringing is not all like, oh, I love you, you're so lovely, you're so perfect. It's like a totally sarcastic, like humor that like is a little bit, people put you down a little bit, but they don't mean it in the way that knocks you down. It's almost like, where do you think you're going, dressed up like a dog's dinner, that type of thing. And so part of it is from there, but I definitely use that humor without trying to offend anyone, and so the things that I find challenging, I don't want to be dismissive of with humor, but I do like to sort of try and sparkle a little bit of glitter in there and sort of say, but he is like a little anecdote that's probably funny for you. And so I just try and soften the topic, because I feel like I talk about heavy topics sometimes. And sometimes I'm a bit mouthy and sometimes I'm a bit cheeky, but I think it's still genuine. But I do love humor, and I think that, like I said to you before in an email, I think I walk close to the fire sometimes, but whatever.
I think you say the things that a lot of women would love to be
Want
saying.
to.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, let's, okay, I love your background of like North England karate. You obviously had to learn how to like defend yourself in a way, growing up, and also didn't have the easy route through life. So let's fast forward, career at IBM, moved to North America. What brought you here, by the way?
My husband, he married well, I might add, and so he went to Harvard, right? But he didn't tell anyone. For some reason, he's like, oh, I don't want to share that. But I was super proud of him, and he got into Harvard Business School. So I tried to transfer with IBM, and they wouldn't let me, right? Just the whole visa situation, it's complicated. We weren't married. That was another thing. But a big eye roll there. But anyway, so we just moved to Boston. We were there for 2 years, and we ended up having our first son there. And then he got a job moving to Toronto with his, like, after he graduated. And he's still with the same company, and that moved us to Toronto for 15 years. And now we're in Houston, Texas, and we've been here 4 years. So we've just traveled with his work, but I feel like my work is super flexible. And especially in this day and age, if I've got like a platform that's almost a community, really, I don't feel like I preach. I feel like we spark conversation. You can do that so easily now, right? It's great.
Yeah, and again, that's really how I came to know you, was through your platform and through the way that you're bringing women together. Obviously, being interested in women's health and menopause and women over 40. I naturally, totally started following you, and Genev has as well. So,
and I think it was through Avram Blooming as well, which is like, he's our, like, the godfather of menopause, isn't he?
He is. Dr. Blooming, for those of you listening, we've had Dr. Blooming on our podcast before. He's the co-author of Estrogen Matters. Really, really great guy, talking about hormone therapy. He's an oncologist, knows breast cancer, has treated a lot of women, and has a lot to say. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's transition then, fast forward to your perimenopausal experience. When did you hit perimenopause yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, just carrying on from that last story. So I started a fitness business. I was in my 40s, feeling really good about myself. I often say I invest a lot of time and energy into my health, and it's something I'm very proud of. Like, I've studied this for decades, and I sort of have a really good understanding of my body, and I feel like I've got really good body awareness. I wasn't particularly a sick person throughout my life, and never had, luckily, many issues with like PMS and anything like that. So going into my 40s felt pretty good, maybe a bit smug. And then I think I was about 42, and I'm a bit wavy with the actual details because menopause brain. But for about 42, I started to feel unwell, and I struggled with vertigo, migraines, and ultimately depression, which I didn't recognize at the time, for about 2 years, seeing doctors and having multiple tests, expensive testing as well, like MRIs and CAT scans, specialists in neurology, ear, nose, and throat. And I had like really good care. I was in Canada at the time. They wanted to help me, but ultimately didn't. I was constantly misdiagnosed. They didn't really know what was the root cause of what was going on. And it was at my annual exam with my gynecologist, I sort of broke down in like the, I don't know if you're like that, but when I'm not feeling myself and I go to the doctors, I always cry. I'm just like, I just don't feel well.
The
And
same,
so
when you get in front of someone who might care about you,
who
don't you
might
just
care?
you just kind of lose it. Yeah, yeah.
And this doctor ultimately did care, because he sat down and he said,
Mm.
what's the matter? I can see something's not right. And my previous appointments with him had always been very dismissive, so I actually wasn't looking forward to this. But he recognized what was going on after I told him my story. And he said, these are valid symptoms of perimenopause. You're not making these up. You're not going crazy. I can help you. And he sort of recognized that the vertigo and chronic fatigue and depression that I was struggling with were also associated. I also was having migraines as well, which we know now are a known symptom of perimenopause. And he basically just sent me on the path to health again. And so from that time forward, and then he said to me, that was the key thing. He said, these are regular symptoms of perimenopause. And I was like, oh, stop. What's perimenopause? Because 8 years ago, I'd never heard of that word. And then I sort of went down the menopause rabbit hole and just started really digging deep and trying to find out as much information as I could. Some of it was so confusing. Some of it was clearly made up. Some of it was misinformation. And it was just very difficult for me to get really solid information that wasn't just blowing my mind with confusion, that wasn't ultra medical or wasn't flippant to the point of just being, oh, you'll be fine, just sail through it. I wanted real knowledge. And so I sort of dug into the research, and then I found specialists. Dr. Avram Blooming was one of them. I found some North American Menopause Society specialists, registered dietitians that actually could tell us what happened when the changes in estrogen happened throughout the body. And it just all of these pieces of the puzzle started coming together. And I still struggled. I struggled for a long time through perimenopause. I had doubts. I had fears about treatment, same as any other woman. And I feel like I eventually ended up at a place where I felt pretty solid with all my knowledge and the acts that I did, the things that I did personally, the medical treatments out there. And that's ultimately why I wrote the book, I suppose. I got all of this information and I needed it in one place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so where are you at in your menopause journey now?
Yeah, I'm 2 years post-menopause. So I went through it quite early, 48. So I had 6 to 7 years of perimenopausal symptoms that nobody told me that was going to happen. Nobody. Yeah. And in my world, in the fitness and health industry, we have really good specialties that we can study to do with aging bodies, over 50s, over 60s. We have pregnancy, pre and post pregnancy courses. And things to do with rehabilitation. I've got all of them. I've done them all, right? There's nothing for menopause. And in fact, the message in the fitness world is just keep training like you're doing. You don't need to do anything different. And, nothing changes. Just carry on regardless. It's usually from aging white men that do it. I'm just being a bit smug here, but it really frustrates me that they don't care enough to realize that actually we are going through a massive change that requires some nuances and some changes as to the way we approach health and fitness. I'm hoping that changes, that that the information changes. It slowly is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was blindsided by all of the symptoms. I knew nothing of it. Probably similar to you, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think probably 80% of women who go through menopause, which we all go through it, and obviously to varying degrees. But I think the thing to take away there is you were 42 when some of these symptoms began. You're not an old woman. You're still not an old woman, Amanda, and and I feel like there's still such a perception that menopause is an old woman's thing. Mm-hmm. And, you were 42 years old. You were still probably able, a lot of women are having babies at 42, you were really young. You still are.
And it's really interesting though, because I think in retrospect, because it's really good looking back and we realize things, right? I think my last child I was 38, and the year after that, things had started to change. Mm-hmm. So really, I think it was probably my late 30s. And I definitely had the perception that menopause was an old person's thing. Yeah. And even the clients that were coming to me would say things like, oh, I think menopause is kicking my ass today. And I'd be like, oh, you'll be fine, just have a good workout and you'll feel good afterwards, and really was dismissive in a way because I didn't have any information.
Yeah. So let's, in your last, you talked a little bit about fitness and how so many fitness and wellness, instructors are like, just push through it, keep working out like you always have. And I think a lot of the time women, we need role models. Like, we don't have other women that we can see going through this change in the fitness industry or in health and wellness, like women like you, Amanda. Like, first of all, I want to say thank you for being that role model. But how have you had to change, and how have you rethought or even rewired your brain? Because I'm sure you had to go through this series of like, I want to be able to do what I used to do, but then you've got to get to this point of acceptance and then start doing the new. What did that look like?
Yeah, how long you got? Because honestly, that was one of the biggest epiphanies for me. So like, you probably can tell from speaking to me that like, fitness and athleticism has always been super important to me, because it just has had so many benefits outside of my physical health. Like, my emotional health and my mental health have always been, I felt pretty grounded because of the physical activity. I also really like pushing hard. I really like training hard. I like to see what my body is capable of. And I've always done like crazy challenges and stuff. And so what happened is, in my 40s, I started to just feel this chronic fatigue that wouldn't go. Well, obviously if it's chronic, it wouldn't go, but it was just, it endured for years. Like, I just stopped being able to lift as heavy in the gym. I stopped being able to run as hard. In fact, I actually stopped running. This is during perimenopause, I might add. I stopped being able to run because as soon as I'd done like a 5K run, I would be exhausted and have to like not do anything for 2 or 3 days. And so it became clear to me when I started to understanding the woman's physiology. So essentially what we know is, as soon as the estrogen starts to decline in perimenopause in that really fluctuating, crazy manner, you already know then that you can't plan as often as you did, because you might feel great one day, but the next day wake up feeling so terrible that there's no chance that you're going to be able to do the workout that you planned. And so the first thing I had to do was become flexible, like with my mind. And for somebody who programs everything in her life, that was like really hard for me. I mean, I'm a programmer, and then I record my data. Like, I love it. Like, it gets me excited, right? We all get off on different things, and mine's data.
I love it. That's all right.
And so I had to like take a step back and say, stop being disappointed in yourself. Stop being frustrated that today you couldn't go for your run. What do you truly feel like doing? And so I had this like scale. I do my 1 to 10 scale every day. So I still did do data, right? And if I felt between 1 and 4 that day, then I would try and go for a small walk. But sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I was stuck on the sofa watching Netflix, and that was fine. And it was an acceptance thing I did. If I was between like the 5 and 7, then I would definitely go out for a walk, or maybe do like a light mobility workout, or even a body weight workout, like with some light weights. And then if I was my 8 to 10, then I would do my normal stuff. So I sort of like put things into categories, and that really helped me have like what I felt like was control, because I couldn't stop this fatigue. I wasn't on any hormone replacement therapy. It wasn't like I wasn't really getting any aids from a medical perspective initially. And so I just was like, okay, be kind, honor your body where it is. And what we know with some types of exercise, like those HIIT workouts and the running, that put you in this prolonged catabolic state. And catabolic essentially means your body breaks down, which it has to do to grow and build. It has to break down, but it then also has to rebuild. And you rebuild with rest, with nutrition and sleep. Like, all of those things help rebuild and make you stronger, rebound quicker, all of those things. But the running was like, it was killing me. And I realize now that that's sort of one of the things that women are struggling with during perimenopause specifically. Whereas the weight training does produce a catabolic stimulus, but then it also has an anabolic side, and the anabolic means to build up. So the recovery is a lot quicker. And so essentially what I did is I had rest days where I did nothing, or I walked, or I did something gentle like going out for a bike ride or a light swim, something that was calming and didn't overstress my body depending on how I felt. And then I did strength training that wasn't crazy burpees and jumping off a Bosu ball and flipping it over your head. It was like solid, basic lifting weights hard enough to create progress and change. 3 or 4 times a week, 3 times a week, sometimes 2 times a week. And I had to just like be kind to myself and just realize that, you know, like all these little things I did were helpful to like longevity and my overall health. In the moment, it didn't feel like that though. You know, if I was only going for a walk, I had to sort of really work with that nasty thought monster that was saying, you're such a loser. And then I'd be like, and like, because the old Amanda would have been, you can't ever do a run walker for like the mums who are like wear the Lululemons at the school with the Starbucks. They'll go, let's go for a run walk. And now I'm a run walker. I'm like, put my Lululemons on, I get my Starbucks. Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm trying not to be disrespectful, but I just, you know, I had to really take a step back and readjust my thought process and then apply that to how I did like the physical movement. And we know that the calming exercises, those active movements, which we in the fitness world call NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's the movement you do that's not programmed exercise that still burns calories and works your metabolism. And that's walking. Walking's like one of the biggest studied activities on the planet, one of the most beneficial. And so women knowing that they do the NEAT exercise every day and move every day, it's really beneficial on so many levels, right? When my hormones definitely calmed down in postmenopause, it was a different story. I like got myself back. Like, and I think that that's another message of hope, that, you know, things change and our perspective has to change in postmenopause because of the potential health issues we've got. But the energy level, the chronic fatigue and all of those things have definitely, they've renewed and come back again.
So let's talk about the postmenopause. I don't think we talk enough about that, because you know, if you want to reshift how women approach menopause, is not something we dread, but a transition that's going to get us to even a better place, and that we get to come into our own and have our own confidence and wisdom. Let's also talk about physical change. Like, how did you feel when you got on the other side? We just rarely hear this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I agree. I think postmenopause isn't spoken about enough, because I think this is a lack of knowledge again, because I'll have women say to me, well, I'm not in menopause anymore, so what does it matter about the book? And I'm like, well, oh my God, like, I think it's even more important to focus on that personally, because when a woman's in perimenopause and she's symptomatic, the solutions are usually quite simple to help her. Like, the medical solutions are usually quite simple. Postmenopause, it's more about like the health risks that she's facing. Okay, I just want to make sure we still froze. Yeah, we froze a little bit.
Froze for 1 second, okay. But I could hear you all the way through. So yeah, so postmenopause.
Okay, so I'll carry on. Yeah, and so what I want to touch on a couple of things that you've already said. First of all, representation. We aren't represented, and menopause looks so different these days because, one, nobody spoke about it in our mother's generation, so we had no idea really what it looked like, and we just saw pictures of old ladies with white curly hair doing the knitting. And I'm like, no, this is what menopause looks like now. Fit, healthy, strong, resilient women. And we are. Like, look at all of the postmenopausal women that are representing us in sort of your industry, in femtech and in CEOs and CFOs, and I love it. But in the fitness industry, we're not represented at all. And I say in my book, I suppose in the fitness industry, I'm considered like the old hag of fitness, because I don't see many people like me, like, out there, because, you know, the fitness industry is all about 20, 30-year-olds in the little booty shorts, and they don't want to see people like me. But the majority of women who now pay money to go to gyms and pay for personal trainers are in fact the menopausal women, right? So representation is not out there. And I often find that people who are representing us actually don't do a very sincere or ethical job. You know, they'll be all about, come to me and I'll help balance your hormones with this expensive test and these supplements. And I'm just like, we need more realness and more like more honest information out there. And so what happens in postmenopause is, you know, women think, oh, well, I'm through the worst of it now. I've had all those symptoms. I'm actually feeling really good, which often happens. I might have hot flashes and a dry vagina, but like mostly I'm doing all right. And they're probably reaching.
And in terms of what you don't feel anymore, you don't feel the crazy fatigue, the just, how about even mentally? Like, is your brain clearer?
Often a lot of women feel like they've reached an impasse where they come over the other side, and maybe the brain fog's lifting and the cognitive issues and the depression and the anxiety are maybe calming down. I mean, some women will continue to have that for sure. It's not like a one size fits all, but I think the intensity and then a multitude of symptoms of perimenopause calm down, and that's the main point of what I'm trying to say. But we also know that as soon as we've reached that low estrogen sort of threshold, that low level, then a woman is then open to osteoporosis. We know postmenopausal women, it's like 1 in 2 women will break a bone. I think Avram Blooming was telling us that 40,000 women a year die as a complication of breaking a hip with osteoporosis, and that's more than any women die as a totality of breast cancer. So like it's a big problem for women. Also cardiovascular disease, our #1 killer for women, and Alzheimer's is another. You know, there's a multitude of sins that like can come our way. And then we have like health issues like diabetes, insulin resistant, the metabolic disorders that can come when we gain weight and we become more insulin sensitive. Well, insulin resistant, our sensitivity changes. And so there's things that women like have potentially in their future that they may not feel right now. And I think that's the difference. Perimenopause, you feel it in the moment, right? You feel it's very real. But postmenopause, it's like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, but you may not be. And so what you need to do is you need to like build some really strong muscles. You need to strengthen your bones. You need to create a lean body mass so that you have like really good health markers, so that you're not at risk for cardiovascular disease. And so there's so many, and for diabetes and all of the other issues that women face, they can be helped with lifestyle choices, right? And so I feel like postmenopause doesn't get the time it deserves because it doesn't feel as urgent, possibly. And the other thing I've noticed as well between perimenopause and postmenopause is what happens is women may be pulled back from doing physical activities that they maybe did in their 30s and 40s. And what happens from an emotional point of view that I've seen by speaking to people and just from what the psychological research has shown us is that women start to doubt themselves and their athletic ability and their also their chance to like step outside and do something a little bit scary. Remember like that feeling of like maybe doing a 5K run and you've never done one before and you're like so nervous and you run to the toilet every 5 minutes. You're like, why have I done this to myself? But at the end, the sense of achievement that you have and how it makes you grow and thrive, well, that like wanes a little bit in midlife. And so that's something I'm desperate for women to get back, because as soon as you start getting a little sniff of what that feels like again, it's a brilliant propeller into like bulletproofing old age, right? Yeah.
And it's the small achievements, whether it is running a 5K or whether it is, hey, twice this week, I did some weightlifting, or I did a workout with my Peloton app, or I went for 2 walks, or I walked 3 times. Like, I think setting those little goals for yourself and then feeling kind of good about it, that's infectious, and when you have gone, because one thing I admire about you, Amanda, through the perimenopause and even now in post, and even as an author writing a book, I'm sure there are so many moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I just can't get my butt in the seat to continue writing, or is anyone going to really even read this? Like, you have a really healthy mindset that just keeps you going. What's your advice to women who kind of sometimes feel that defeatist feeling that we all feel, but that can be amplified by menopausal symptoms?
Yeah, menopausal symptoms are maybe life circumstances, not lifestyle, but life circumstances. Because, menopause hits during that midlife transition where, you may be trying to do a full-time job or changing your career with kids at home, maybe going to university and driving you nuts and then you've got aging parents, and then the divorce rate's like the highest it's ever been because your husband's breathing's driving you crazy, right? There's all sorts going on. And so then maybe you're going through all of those life stresses. You probably stop sleeping, right? Because perimenopause does that to you. Estrogen's intrinsically connected with cortisol levels. So your stress is like there's steam blowing out your ears the whole time. And then you've got symptoms on top of that. And then you're telling me that you want me to be confident and forge through and be like awesome and tell yourself you're awesome every day. Well, you just want to tell people to F off, right? You just like, let's back off. I'm in the dire place right now, and I want to stay there. I get that, like, cause I've felt it. And one of the things that women will often say is things like, I'm bored with my life. I don't get any joy from it. Like, I've lost my confidence. I've lost self-esteem. And so these are like messages I hear all the time. Like in my group yesterday, one woman just said, I just can't even do today. I can't look at myself in the mirror. I hate the way I look. I hate the way I feel. I hate my kids. I hate my husband. I lost my job because of the pandemic. Like, it's miserable. And so it's okay. I don't want to be the flippant person that comes on here and going, oh, well, all you need to do is this, because I don't want to be condescending. But what we do know is a couple of things. Is that firstly, we know that after the age of like 50, 55, we tend to become, as women and men in that age group, more content and happy with life. Just the U curve study that was done in Stanford University shows that we maybe take less cares about things. We're able to shrug off the small stresses and remove the toxic ones from our life. I think that menopause, when you're through the dire side of it and you sort of start to feel a little bit more like yourself again, can give you the gift of being able to make really good choices, because you've been through something really hard. And when you go through a challenge, or it's almost like a little bit of like a trauma, when your body's gone through all of those things, you can come out the other side making better choices. Like, that person makes me feel terrible about myself. I don't need that in my life. This social media feed is exhausting and I feel desperate every time I read it. Get rid of it. Like, just making better choices in your life is one thing that we need to do. The other thing is to take the guilt away. And we've spoken about this before, but I'm a really big proponent of movement mentality. So stopping stressing about everybody else, like your work colleagues, your family, and your friends, just actually take some time out every single day to do something that's fulfilling for you, that makes you feel better about yourself. And that could be something like a mindfulness type practice, which is where you just like really just be in the moment and be calm and do some deep breathing. Or it could be going for a walk and being out in nature. It could be going to your fitness class, getting your nails done. It can be anything, right? But just actually putting yourself first and just saying, once my ducks are all in a row, then I'm fine, and then everybody else will be fine too. So I really encourage women to try and do that. And the other flip side of that is when you're in those moments of feeling like you can't or you don't want to, is to try and just do something called notice and name. And it's a method of it's okay to have horrible thoughts. Nobody's telling you not to only give yourself rosy thoughts the whole time. But if you look in the mirror and you go, I'm so fat and ugly today, I hate myself, just acknowledge that thought and then just let it go. Don't respond to it. Don't act on it. Don't then go, yeah, I need to go on a diet. Just go, let it go, and then look for something positive. Actually go, yeah, but you know what I did today is I went for a 10-minute walk, and so I'm awesome. And so it's just about reframing things and just putting things in a different light. Like when you say, I looked in the mirror and I'm so fat, and you notice in them that you could then reframe that and just say, okay, so you don't love the way you feel right now, but your body's going through a big change, and that change can mean that we change shape and we feel different. Is that such a bad thing? And if it is such a bad thing in your life, what's the one thing you could do today that would make you feel better about yourself? Maybe it would be to like focus on eating vegetables at every single meal. That's something positive I can do for my health, and it may also help with weight loss. Right. So I just want people to just stop being so mean to themselves, right? Because I think that, but it's really hard, and I've had to do it myself, right? Like the work isn't easy, and it continues, you know.
Well, it because we're quite good at it, it becomes a habit, you know. And I do like that notice and name, or at least having some sort of kind of routine of anytime you do have that kind of really negative thought, acknowledge it, you know, you're feeling it. Otherwise you wouldn't, you know. And then second of all, name something that you actually kind of feel good about, even if it's just like, I made the bed today, or, you know, I gave my child a hug this morning. Okay, great. I showed him that I loved him.
I'm not feeling parent.
Great. Yeah. So let's transition a little bit to Menopocalypse and the book. First of all, tell me about the title and the name. Like, how did you land on Menopocalypse?
I'm obsessed with zombies. I always say if the zombie apocalypse comes, like you need me on your team. Like I'm a really good fighter. So, so that I always like joke about the zombies coming. And then I actually had the name Menopocalypse, and I threw it into my Menopausing So Hard Facebook group, and they were like, a lot of people, I did a poll. There was people that just loved it, and other people were like, you just make it sound miserable and terrible, and there's like no end in sight, and so I think it's a really negative name. And so I actually didn't use the name for a long time, and when I wrote the book I actually had the title Menopausing So Hard as the title. But when the publisher picked me up, they said, you know, we don't love Menopausing So Hard, can you think of something else? And I said Menopocalypse, and they were like, that's it, it's brilliant. But I said it needs to have a positive like tag, a subtitle, because what I'm saying is it did feel like hell when I was in it, like it really did. And I don't want to skirt away from that fact. I want women to know that yes, you may face challenges, and that's going to be part of it, but there are things that you can do to take control of as well, right? And so it was obviously, and I need things that have got some humor in it. And I also love it when people can't say it, and I watch them go Menopocalypse, and I'm like, come on, it's not that hard actually. In fact, my subtitle should have been how to say it phonetically, because
no, well, and even I love your stance on the image of the book. Like you're flexing your muscles, like I'm all, tell me about that image, because that's also, it's really bold. And what I love about it, Amanda, is you're just like owning it. And how did you land on that?
Yeah, it was like I wanted to say I'm going to flex through menopause. It was basically like a big FU, because if you followed me prior to writing the book, like I'm always sticking my V's up at the, well, you don't know what the V's are, like flipping the bird at like the camera. But in a way that's like, you know, screw you, I can do this. It's not like screw you, I hate you all. It's more like I can take this on, I can do this. And there's ways, I know we can do this, right? And the thing is about the flex is that's what people are drawn to for sure. And people have been like getting the books and flexing for me. And I'm like, get in there, because I just want women, we're so powerful. Like we are so powerful. And I just want them to realize their potential. And powerful doesn't mean having bulging biceps. It just means like strength of character, strength of your values, and everything you do in life. And I joke that we all should be sat in a tent smoking a pipe, because we're like these old sages that we just know shit that we should share. And yet we go through these feelings of being invisible are often corroborated by maybe being ignored by people in our lives, that we can't be there. We're not meant to be in the background, I don't believe. And so it's all that in a picture, basically.
You mentioned earlier that the book is kind of a culmination of your research and all the things you learned. Anything that you learned in writing the book, or anything that surprised you, I guess?
Well, you know, yes, but I think it was like just through writing the book and just having conversations with people. So first of all, like I learned that the treatment options are fairly simple. Like they're very sophisticated these days, but I discovered that women aren't getting help. And I never really experienced that, but I sort of did in a way. You know, I got lots of help. I was in Canada, they have a really great healthcare system. I realized that The doctors were helping me, but they didn't know anything about menopause. And that was the key thing to me. I was like, why is it in this day and age that we are going to the doctor and we are having a disservice? They're not helping us. Why is there no mandatory menopause training for GPs? Why do gynecologists not get this as a given part of their fellowship? And we know, Avram Bloomin told us, 20% of them get menopause management training. So that was my biggest, like, bloody hell, right? Mm-hmm. The other big thing that came out of it is the post-menopause health risks and how hormone therapy can actually help prevent those, that women on hormone therapy will likely live longer than those without hormone therapy because it's a protective factor for them. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. So from the medical standpoint, if only doctors all knew that, we would all be better served. Mm-hmm. From the health perspective, like coming from the lifestyle side of it, and me being a nutrition coach and a strength coach, it just made me so happy that my bias was like lifted up, because I obviously talk about it and love it because it's like part of my life. But I then get all of this information that corroborates it, that makes me feel really good. And I did, obviously actively was seeking it out, but it's really hard to argue with. And I'd like to argue with anyone who doesn't believe me that we know that strength training can help improve bone integrity, right? When you do a strength training routine, the stimulus between the muscle pulling away from the bone, creates a stimulus that strengthens the bone. And we've seen DEXA screenings that have completely flipped osteoporosis out of there through resistance training. We know that it works. We know resistance training can help with all of the disorders I told you about, like cardiovascular disease, insulin resistant, diabetes, all of those things can be improved with resistance training. We also know that vasomotor symptoms of menopause, like hot flashes, cold flashes, which I know you have a really great article on, and night sweats, can be improved with strength training. Up to 70%, the study in Scandinavia showed last year. Like, wow. So that's huge.
Wow. Who knew strength training and hot flashes and night sweats? And
I don't know why, and they don't know why. And no, I'm not even going to try and guess why, but there's obviously some type of a stimulus that happens either from the activity itself or from maintaining and building lean muscle mass. Mm-hmm. Now, the other side of like the strength training is the nutrition. And what I learned and I love is that I knew that protein was important for women, and I know that most women undereat protein. It's not like our favorite macronutrient, because that would be carbs, right? We love our carbs. And women love like binging on salads as well. So the good, like, you know, they're complex carbs as well. But protein has got to be one of the main focuses for women, because we lose 3% of our muscle mass every year, every decade after the age of 30, and it's accelerated with menopause. So we know that we lose muscle quicker and gain fat quicker. So we need to sort of like reverse that trend. Mm-hmm. So eating adequate protein with a strength training program aids the process that's called muscle protein synthesis, which basically means turning protein into the ability to build muscle. Mm-hmm. So eating enough protein with a strength training program is like literally key to health markers and health issues in aging. And so I love that. I find eating protein really, really hard. And I've had to try a few tricks and stuff to get enough protein in, but it's a game changer. And I just want women to understand personally how to move their body the most effectively and efficient way, and give it the nutrients it needs to get there in a non-complicated way.
Yeah. And you don't need to be a fitness guru or have been an athlete throughout your life to start doing this. And I think what's so important is you just break it down to make it approachable for anybody in their lifestyle in a way that works for them.
There's an entry level for anybody, like everybody's right? At some stage.
Yeah. You know, this is just, we could go on forever. But, you know, in closing, so first of all, we're going to put a few things in the show notes. Obviously a link to Menopocalypse, order the book. It's just, I think, an incredible resource. It's kind of flying off the shelves. You launched it two weeks ago, a bestseller in, I know, the UK. on the Amazon list. So congratulations, first of all.
Yeah. So it went, we're on our third print run in the UK, and it went #1 in USA and Canada in my category, menopause category. So yes, very happy about that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then obviously Fit and Chips is your website. So look her up, Amanda Thebe. Thebe, you'll see the URL to the website in our show notes as well. But in closing, Amanda, 2 questions for you. First of all, can we get a couple copies of your book to give away to listeners?
Oh, I would love that. It has to be in the USA, unfortunately. But I would love that. What should we get them to do? How can they earn a copy?
We'll have to think about that. I would say they're going to have to answer some question. What do you want to know? Or the women that you work with, Amanda, do you have them commit to a goal or a mantra or do you should we have them pose?
I like the pose. We need a flex.
Okay.
So I do have a mantra that will help them flex though, because in the book I talk about going to my gym pre-pandemic, and I would be working out and there was only like 5 or 6 people in the gym that I got to know quite well. One of them was a 78-year-old man, and he came up to me one time and said, I love that you're in your 40s and you work out really hard and intelligently. It just looks good and you look healthy. You're an inspiration. And I was like, dude, you're my inspiration. You're 78 and you're here all the time. And he said the mantra, I don't let the old man in. And it's from a country and western song. And so I adopted the don't let the old lady in. And I have I might say old woman. I don't know. It depends which country I'm in, because lady in the UK. And I use that when I start to feel like, a bit down. I'm like, no, you've got to like remain youthful in your outlook if you can. And so I'd love women to think that as they do the exact pose I did on the front of the book. And so they can post it in their Instagram.
Fantastic. And tag you, I would assume.
Tag me, Flex Like Amanda.
Flex Like Amanda. So tag Flex Like Amanda. Fantastic.
Okay. And I will go through, we'll pick an end date. Maybe we can put that in the show notes as well. We'll have an end date, and I will go to Twitter and Instagram, I think, are the 2 places that you can post. And I will go there at the end date that we decide and send two copies out.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Maybe 3. How about 3?
Okay, 3.
All right.
I want some good flexing though.
You want some good flexes. So get your flex on, everybody. In closing then, what, if you could name one resource that you use, obviously a lot of women are going to be using Menopocalypse as a little bit of a go-to for finding resilience and getting through their perimenopause and going into post. But what's a resource that you rely on?
I have one in the UK that I love, and it's not US, but it's the same. It's all evergreen information. There's a doctor over there called Dr. Louise Newsom. She's become the menopause expert in the UK, but she is a menopause expert, but she's on she's got national coverage now. Hers is menopausedoctor.co.uk. And what she's done is she's printed a whole load of PDF download print sheets. Like, this is what your doctor should tell you. This is what the symptoms are, as we know. This is what the risk factors are of HRT. Everything you need to know from that perspective, from a medical perspective, is there. I use your website all the time. Your resources are fantastic. So Genev.com is another great one. I have a Facebook group called Menopausing So Hard. It really is just a community group. It's nothing else in there. So there's no sales, no products or anything. It's just a place if women want to talk to other women. And within there's a resources section. And it links to places like the North American Menopause Society, the FDA, because I want women to know what's been tested and what hasn't been tested out there. So there's a bunch of information in there too.
Fantastic. Well, as always, it's a pleasure having you today. You make me smile. You kind of make me laugh. And I think out of so many resources and women out there speaking on the topic of menopause, you just make it really relatable and you break it down in ways that any woman can approach it. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for joining us today. Menopocalypse, get it while you can. It's on its 3rd print run, as Amanda said, but get your copy. I know we had you on a show about 2 weeks ago on the day it launched. And one of my friends in particular purchased it, got her copy, was reading it the next day, and just really excited about it. So thanks again for the work that you're doing.
And I'm sure she left me a great review on Amazon.
I'll follow up.
Yeah, follow up. Well, yeah, I'd love to see everyone flex like Amanda. I'm excited to see that. You know, I did a challenge about flexing, about planking, and it was inspired by the notorious RBG. And I like so many people do it, and so I'd love to see and have a gallery, and I'll showcase you as well on my Instagram. That would be great.
Well, I'm going to you don't have to put me in the running for the book, but I will definitely be flexing like Amanda.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay,
great.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Again, my guest was Amanda Thebe, creator of fitandchips.com and author of the latest book, Menopocalypse. It's a guide for any woman going through perimenopause or in postmenopause. She's the person who knows how to break it down using her own experiences. I can't encourage her book enough for every woman going through this journey. And for those that want to try to get into a competition to receive one of 3 copies that Amanda's giving away, all you have to do is flex like Amanda. If you look at the title, the cover of the book, look it up online. She's like flexing her muscles in a really like strong, empowered woman sort of way. If you take a picture or a selfie of yourself flexing like Amanda and post it up to your Instagram account and tag it with #FlexLikeAmanda, she'll see your image and she will enter you into a drawing for one of those 3 books. Please also remember to tag Genev. It's @mygenev, so we can share out your information to our community across the Genev community on Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you.